All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Art of the Good Life. Today we have on Jordan Crosby.
What's going on?
He's a Columbus native, correct?
Yep.
Born and raised in Columbus.
Born and raised.
He has developed a company called DiLusso Real Estate.
Yep.
And last year they did over $12 million in revenue.
So I did 12 million.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's just you specifically.
Just me. Yeah. So the whole company did like just over 108 million. So yeah.
How many people are on the team?
We have about 50 agents or so.
And then you're kind of the top of that.
Yeah, I'm towards the top. I'm probably our top 3 or 4. We have one agent who himself did about 30 million. So, you know, quite a bit of income coming from that.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
How long ago did you guys start that? Or how did
So
that
I
get
started. So I got my real estate license back in 2016, just as an agent, and then in 2019 I decided to take my broker classes, and that takes about a year. So then we officially started in 2020. We kind of closed our first deal at the end of 2020. So yeah, it's been about 5 years or so, and it's been a chaotic 5 years because of COVID and everything that's happened with the economy since COVID.
Right.
Prior to COVID, everything was relatively, probably in the time, like in the moment, we didn't think it was very stable, but looking back at interest rates and everything and, unemployment, all that. Yeah. It's been chaotic the last 5 years. It seems like we're starting to level out a little bit, but yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
A lot of companies started in COVID, seems like.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it's like I said, I started I started the classes in 2019. So it was just like a long ride. Like the plan was always to do it. I think I purchased the LLC in 2019. So like that, and then the dominoes fell perfectly that, hey, we're opening our doors and COVID's here at the same time. So, but yeah, it's been an interesting ride. It's been a good ride though, because a lot of people, because of all the chaos of COVID, people will, COVID opened up people's minds to their jobs that they've been at for 10 years, 15 years, whatever, and realize maybe I don't want to do this or whatever. And so they're like, nah, I really don't love this accounting job or this whatever job. Let me try, the real estate industry. Like, for example, we've got a lot of teachers over the last handful of years who are just fed up with one thing or the other. A lot of times from what I hear, it's like the parents, just being too overbearing. And, of course, welcome to America. It's like parents never want to take accountability for their kids' actions, and they're never going to blame their kid. So then who's to fall? It's the teacher is at fault. And so I think, unfortunately, them having to deal with that and not getting paid a lot of money, they're like, let me dabble in the real estate industry. So
actually make some money.
Yeah. And just not deal with, they work a good bit, and it's like,
teachers' jobs are hard.
Yeah, and they don't get paid
with
very
the kids
well
these days.
Yeah, like the public respects them. Like the public understands like they do a good job, and there's a lot of, and they're very important. But that's about where the respect stops. It's like the pay and, like I said, the parents and all that seems to not be there. So they're like, I'm out of here. On to other
I would
things.
do the same. Yeah, I don't blame them.
Yeah. So
shout out to the teachers that are still
really
working hard.
Yep. Out there grinding for us. Yeah, exactly.
So have you always been a real estate agent? Like, is that kind of what you wanted to do coming out of school?
No. So I, in high school, I was like not good at school. I was just getting through school.
What was your GPA in high school?
I graduated with a 1.7.
1.7, nice.
Brutal. Yeah. And like to the point where I always tell my wife, I joke with my wife about this story where I had a French teacher that we had to take languages, and because it was essentially like you need, I think, 2 or 3 credits in order to get into college was how they presented it to us. I don't know how true that was. And I just could not pass the first, I took French, I took Spanish in middle school, and then in high school I was like, I'm going to try French. I took French 4 times. And on the 4th one, I just had a mutual agreement with my teacher that she literally told me, she's like, look, you can sleep in class, but don't disturb the students. Like, you sleep, don't bother them, and I won't get you in trouble. It was just like we've mutually agreed week 1 that you're gonna fail, but don't ruin everyone else's time. Like that.
You can ride by, but just don't be a distraction.
Yeah, because I would be like screwing off. So I respected her.
You're like the
agreement.
class clown in high
school.
It
wasn't even that. It was just like I just didn't care, and so like I think my not caring like was a little contagious, not like to a degree, but she would see it in 1 or 2 other students. Like, oh, well, if he doesn't care, why should I care? Especially when I'm a senior in like essentially a freshman class. The freshmen are like looking up to me. as terrible as that is, and so they're like,
Setting a
oh,
bad example for him.
yeah. So that kind of epitomizes my high school career. It was just like, just do the minimum to get by and just get out of here. And then, I went to college because I graduated high school in '09. So back then, college was still getting pushed pretty heavily.
Right.
And so I went to OSU for political science. Like I went to the branch campus up in Delaware.
Okay.
For political science, I thought I was going to go to I wanted to go to law school, but it was at that time I'm literally just throwing crap at the wall and hoping to say, I'm like, oh, this looks cool on TV. I don't know anything about it. And then quickly I learned about how much schooling is involved and reading and all this and that. And then I also learned that, you're not going to, like, I thought attorney, oh, that's big money stuff. I quickly learned, like, you don't necessarily make big money after you're going to be in debt a good bit. And then you might make like 40 grand a year. And I was like, oh, that's not.
Is that what an attorney makes?
In the beginning, until you like grind and maybe build your own firm. And then once you have your own firm, and then, it's not like a doctor where like the day you graduate, you're like making money, And so I was like, nah. And like for me, I developed more as a person after high school. Like I learned more about life and myself through jobs that I had. Like, working all these different odds and ends jobs taught me who I am. Like I worked in a sales job when I was 19, and that was pretty eye-opening. Like it was definitely the most like life-changing thing for me because it was hardcore sales. Like the way
What were you selling?
Lawn care. It was True Green lawn care.
Okay.
But it was like in a call center, like borderline Wolf of Wall Street style. Like some of these dudes were in here doing some like, I don't want to say fully like slimy, but on the line of slimy. Like, because essentially our job would be to call people who already have the lawn care package and then upsell them on aeration treatment in the fall or whatever, right? So it's like, hey Mike, how you would normally do that is you'd be like, hey Mike, happy that you're a longtime customer of ours, like, are you interested in our fall aeration? But what these guys will do is be like, hey, Mike, I talked to the tech and we're going to go ahead and get that aeration done for you next Wednesday. Is that okay? Like almost like as if it's already scheduled. And they're like, yep, okay. Because all you needed was that okay on the recording. And then that's like a $250 charge that's just going to show up on their card. So I was like, holy crap, this is wild.
They're just being sneaky. They're like, all right, this is like the... People don't even realize they're agreeing to it.
Yeah, and then people would call in all the time pissed, and I was just like, this is crazy. But like the ones who just had no morals essentially and were good at it, like they made some pretty decent money. But the thing that opened my eyes to was like communication skills and like when you're being manipulated, because like I was essentially around people manipulating people all day, and so when you're being sold and so it really opened your eyes to that, but it also opened my eyes to that was like a commission-based job. And so I was like, wow, these guys are in here grinding and like they're making essentially like, I don't want to say infinite money, but like the longer they're in here and the more sales they get paid based on that. And prior to that, any other job I was at, you're like hourly. So
right.
It doesn't matter how hard you
room
work.
for
like when I worked
at
like Krispy Kreme donuts in high school, like
how your first job?
No, Subway in the Walmart was one of my first jobs.
Subway in the Walmart.
And then like a car wash. And then Hollister in the mall back in the day, and then Krispy Kreme. But it's like all those jobs, it's like at Krispy Kreme, it's like no matter how well you mop that floor in the evening, you're getting paid the same. So you could half-ass
or how little you, how terrible you mop
exactly.
the floor.
So, which is fine, but I was like, holy crap, this is cool though. You can like what you put in, you get out of it. Like that's awesome. So then that almost ruined like typical employment for me. I was like, now I'm like that put like the entrepreneurial bug into me, and then, so in True Green, you can't sell in the winter. Like, obviously, so they essentially lay everyone off from like October to this time of year, like February or March. So you get unemployment or you can just go find a job. So I would work at like a Home Depot. One year I went to go work at Home Depot for that time. I remember I was loading mulch. It was like in the spring. I was loading this guy's truck bed full of mulch, and I don't know what we were talking about, but he was like, I remember him being like, the best way to get rich slowly is rental properties. And for whatever reason, like he wasn't in like a nice truck or anything. He was just a guy. But for whatever reason, that planted in my mind. And I was like, oh, maybe I should look into the real estate stuff.
What year was that?
And probably 2012, maybe.
Okay.
2013. So I was like, man, that's pretty all right, cool. So then,
So like right when you you graduated college?
no, I went for like
Okay.
a year and a half, and then
Okay.
there was there was a semester where I literally failed like all 4 of the classes. My parents were paying for it because it was like I said, it was a branch, so it was like $4,000 a semester or $5,000 a semester. It wasn't a ton of money. They were just like, they saw the writing on the wall, and I saw the writing on the wall. They were just like, yeah, we're not gonna pay for this anymore. And I was just like, almost like, thank God.
Yeah. Like, okay, I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, it was like a relief for both of us that we were just kind of both like awkwardly expecting me to go through college. And so yeah, so and that was kind of when I was still just working at True Green, and I still had no clue what I wanted to do. Like, I'm still like figuring out who I am, and kind of to a degree like thinking I'm not going to be anything great. It's just I'm just kind of like figuring it out, and so then that opened my eyes to the home ownership stuff. And then I bought a house when I was younger. So because I lived with my parents when I was going to college. So I bought a house this would have been 2012. So it would have been right around the same time. Maybe that's why I was having this conversation with that guy, because I was telling him I bought a house. Because 2012, and I did not know this at the time, but we were coming out of the 2008 crash. So houses were super cheap. And so I bought,
how much did you get your first house for?
$100,000. It was like a 4-bedroom house. And the payment was $700. And so I remember thinking like, well, it's a 4-bedroom house, so I can rent rooms for $300 to my friends, and like I can still live for free. It was like not like a entrepreneurial thing. It was like I'm living with my parents now, and I don't want to pay rent. So how can I do that? I'll buy a house and rent rent. So now I'm like making a couple $100 a month, purely out of like cheapness.
Right.
And
yeah.
So then I got so then I bought that house, and then a couple years down the road after that, I looked, and that house went from like $100,000 in value to like 150. And so I'd made like 50 grand of equity just literally hanging out with my friends. And so that really was like the holy crap. Like I made 50 grand over a few years, like not doing anything. I need to buy more of these. Yeah. It was like that guy at Home Depot telling me this, and it all coming to fruition. I was like, holy crap, this is what
was
I need to
right.
do. Yeah. So then I was like, I'm just going to like maybe buy another rental. And so what I did was I took out the money that I did what's called like a cash out refinance, where you can like take the equity out. So I took the equity, I got that 40 or 50 grand out of that equity, and I went and bought a condo. I used an agent. The agent told me that I could rent this condo, because that was the plan, was just to like make it a rental. I closed the deal, and then I reach out to the HOA and I say, hey, do you guys have floor plans of these? And they were like, why would you need a floor plan? And I was like, well, for when I advertise it for rental. And they're like, oh, you can't rent. In the HOA rules, you can't rent here. I literally just like all the money that I'd ever saved up, I just bought this place. And they're like, yeah, you can't rent here. And I was like, holy shit, this is not good. And so and luckily this place, I don't want to say it like needed renovated, but like something happened in there. Like there was no carpet in it, so it was just concrete floors, and like the walls were very dingy. I don't know if someone like died in there or what happened, but like it had not been, no one had been living in there for a year or so. So it needed a little work. So I got it for a little bit cheaper than I should. So I think I put carpet in it, painted it real fast, and then sold it for like a $5,000 profit.
Okay.
Right. But then I remember my agent got like a $6,000 commission, and I was like, what the hell? I was like, I took all
I
the
just did
risk.
all the work, and
Literally,
all I did was
I
sign the
literally
paper?
like, because I was like friendly with her. I texted her. I was like, man, she's like, are you happy you closed? I was like, yeah, but you made more money than me. What the hell? And so again, that was like the seed that planted the like real estate license into my mind. I was like, if I'm gonna do more of these, I might as well get both of those checks, the profit check and the commission check. So that's kind of what spun me down the real estate rabbit hole from like high school to that. So
Okay. So
yeah.
going from your sales job at the lawn care place,
Yeah.
how did you save up money from there and buy yourself a house?
Yeah.
Or how did you get that first house?
Yeah. Because that paid well for, I'm pretty sure I started there when I was like 19 through probably 22.
Okay. So you had like a real job for 3 years.
Yeah, I was getting paid like, I mean, at the time, it's nothing now, but I was getting paid like 40 grand a year. Like that was like college graduate money, and I lived at home and had like zero expenses. So I was just pocketing money.
Nice.
And,
Okay.
And interest rates were super low because we were coming out of that. Like they were trying to, get the real estate industry like back on track. So like they were kind of like
Giving away money.
yeah, they were just like, if you can, we're going to look into your income, because that was the reason that the real estate market crashed. It's like they were just like giving like babysitters houses. They were like, look, we're going to triple check you now, but if you do qualify, like it'll be easier to get a house. And so yeah, I was able to buy a house, and so yeah, I forget where I was even going with that.
Yeah.
But
So basically, like, so you got a house. So you worked for 3 years doing sales, making 40 grand a year, saved all that money because you didn't have expenses. You were living with your parents, and then bought your first house outright, or you got.
No, yeah, I had a loan. I still have the loan on it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
How much did you put down in your first house?
I can't remember. It couldn't have been much. It might have been like 10 grand.
Okay. Yeah. So it was just.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, at the time, it was like a fortune.
And how old were you?
21.
21.
Yeah, I remember it was June 10th of 2012. That was the day I closed on it. Yeah. So, because it was crazy, because I remember, this is how like ignorant I was. Never rented before or anything. So we moved in. It was hot. It was June, and we're just hyped to move into a house. Like, oh, me and my one roommate that I had lined up were like excited. We moved in, and we're just kind of not really paying attention to anything. And then like 4 or 5 days later, like all the power goes off, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, we never put the utilities in our name. and so it was so hot. It was so hot that we left the windows open one night, and just cracked. And we went downstairs, and like my roommate had like his like huge like 15-inch MacBook Pro and like some other like a PlayStation or something in the living room, and like we came down and the window was like even more open, and we're like, what the hell? And the front door was open, and so some dude jumped in. We're pretty sure that he just saw that it had like said, sold. The sold sign was still in the yard. So what they probably thought was like we were moving things in, but not moved in, so we weren't sleeping there. And so they just like went through the house like while we're upstairs sleeping. So yeah, quickly learned, hey, you need to get your utilities in your name ASAP. So but yeah, it was a bit of a learning curve, but it was pretty cool. It was a good time.
That's a pretty awesome story. I feel like probably every kid like these days wishes they could be like, oh, I wish I would have bought a house when I was 21.
Yeah, I mean,
not kid, but adult these days wishes they could have done the exact same thing you did.
Yeah, it was huge. It was huge for me because I was just building equity, like when everyone else was in college. I mean, I was doing the same things.
But you were doing it like accidentally, so you didn't have any kind of mentorship. You didn't have anyone that was like, "Hey, like if you want to create real wealth, you should do this." Like it was just.
I remember. Living,
it just happened.
I was sleeping in my parents' basement. They had like a walkout basement, so it was kind of like my little mini apartment, but I was just like sleeping on the couch for like a few years, and it was fine. But I remember me and my older brother, I have like a half brother who's, maybe like 15 years older than me. I texted him, and I was like, yo, like what is a mortgage payment? Like how much is a mortgage payment on a house, Because I was like starting to get to that point where I was like, I need to get the hell out of here. I'm not looking very cool. Like girls aren't going to want to hang out in my parents' basement. Yeah. You know what I mean? I need to figure something out. But I was just like, man, living for free for so long was like so hard to bite the bullet to like pay. At that point, like I think a normal apartment probably would have been like $600, $500, something like that. But I remember texting him and he just responded and he was like, cheaper than rent. And so I was like, I was like, that's crazy. Because I would have thought that a house would be more expensive than renting. But he was like, no, like a mortgage payment would be cheaper than rent. And so then, maybe I went upstairs and talked to my parents about it or whatever. And it kind of sent me down that rabbit hole and I started looking at houses. And I was like, wow, that'd be crazy. Like if I could. There was another guy too. This also, all these little things when you look back played a role. There was another guy when I had like my first year at True Green, who was younger. He was older than me. He might've been like 22. And they were all like giving him a hard time because he had just bought a house. Like, oh, look at Mr. Hotshot bought a house over here. Like, and they were making it a big deal. So I think that guy kind of almost showed me like, oh, if you work here for a few years, you can maybe buy a house. So I think that might have led to me asking my brother, like, what's it like? Because maybe
like, hey, I've worked here for like I might be able to.
I'm
do this.
almost now becoming that guy that worked there, and so yeah. So then I have a brother, and he was like cheaper than rent. We still joke about it to this day because now he's all like mad. He's like, man, you own all the rental properties. I'm the one who freaking told you to do it, But yeah, so that's kind of the story, and then it just one thing fell into place. I will always say like sometimes I think my bad education or like not caring in school or not being good at the school thing applied to me being able to do all this because I've seen it now as an agent and as an investor and wanting like friends and other people wanting me to help them invest. sometimes they overthink and it like stops them from doing anything, where I was kind of just ignorant. I didn't care. I was just fine with the risk. Like, I kind of had a feeling like I'll figure it out at the end of the day. It's not the worst thing in the world. And maybe again, working at that sales job showed me like, well, if stuff gets tough, I can just work harder and make more commission to cover this, and so I was willing to take the risk. Most people aren't willing to take the risk, so they never do anything.
Well, also, most people, sales is the closest thing you can get to entrepreneurship, I feel like.
100%.
Because it's like, you can actually, like you can work harder and make more.
Yep.
And I know like a lot of people I talk to don't have that luxury in their life where like the harder they work, the more they make. And it really affects the way that people think, and it really affects like the way that people think of what they're capable of doing.
Yeah.
So if like you're like, I make 80K a year, I make 40K a year, like there are so many things that you already just cross off the list.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to even just your reality.
You've got a ceiling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, never gonna happen.
Right.
But yeah, that's pretty, I love that insight of, I feel like a lot of people who don't do very well in high school, have ADHD, become really successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had to figure it out. I knew that I was the only way that I could be. Another thing that I think of often is because I didn't do well in school, I have like a relatively big family. Like my mom has 9 brothers and sisters. So there's a lot of cousins, and I was like kind of the younger one. And so they never really like, not in a bad way, but just in conversation, my mom would be like, oh, Sarah's doing real, she got into OSU or whatever. They got a really good job, or, never like bashing me, but always like applauding the ones that do well. And I thought, just because I knew my own grades, like no one ever shamed me. It was like me shaming myself. I was just like, wow, well, I'll never be like them. But I like really wanted to. And I still think to this day, that drives me to like continue, because I just felt like I was letting the family down, or like, I just wanted almost like my mom and my family's approval. Like I wanted them, when I'm not around, to be like, did you see what Jordan's doing?
Right. Flip the script on him.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, because I didn't get patted on the back for my grades or for my athletics or whatever all through high school, my schooling, it like drove me as an adult to do more. I mean, we've all seen the kids who are the super popular kid or the big academic in school or whatever, and then they kind of just putter out after that because it's like they didn't have that chip on their shoulder.
High school, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of worked in my advantage to a degree.
Yeah, I feel like the people who are kind of applauded in the very beginning never end up, I don't know. I guess that's not true for all people. Like there are probably a lot of people who are really successful in high school that stay successful.
But it would be hard.
It
would be hard to stay motivated when when you're in high school and middle school, it's like, that's literally all and it's like, oh, I'm good. So you probably just assume like no hard work will be involved after, like, I'm good. Like I don't have to do anything. I didn't have to do much now. Like, because generally, like if you're really athletic in middle school, like it's not like you've been grinding for 20 years. You don't like, it's just like you just kind of like,
you're just naturally kind of gifted.
Yeah. So they were just like, oh, life is easy,
right.
Whereas like my whole growing up was kind of like, I'm going to have to do something. Like life's not easy. I'm going to have to figure something out, or I'm just going to have to accept like below mediocrity. And who knows, if I didn't stumble into the real estate thing, like I often think, like, what if I never texted my brother and asked that? Or what if I never met that guy at Home Depot? Or all these little things that add up to send me down this path. Who knows? Maybe I'd still be maybe a manager of Krispy Kreme donuts for all I know.
What did you think you'd be when you graduated high school?
No clue.
You didn't even know?
No, I wasn't even interested in a thing. Like I was literally like, oh, maybe I'll go to like law school because I like arguing to a degree, I guess, but like I like debating or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I internally or whatever, like changed or developed so much from high school to that 22, 23, because I probably knew college was not happening. Like if you go to college and you're going to be an architect, like you kind of know, like the vision is there.
Right.
I didn't have any vision. And my parents were never like pressing me to do one thing or the other. Like my dad was a CODA bus driver and my mom worked for like the state and like HR. So they weren't like pressing me to do one thing or the other. They were just kind of like, yeah, exactly. So I didn't really have a vision. So it was almost again like a blessing that I didn't have any kind of like path, because then I like had to scramble. Now it worked out in my case. There's a lot of people who wouldn't have a direction and they would just never find their thing.
Right.
Luckily for me, I was like trying stuff, because that's the differentiator. It's like if you don't have a path, you have to try things.
Do
you
a bunch of things until something hits.
Yeah. Like I was just talking to Olentangy. Ironically, Olentangy invited me to come back to talk to the students, because now they are starting to push the narrative of like, you don't need to go to college as much. And there's a lot of kids who are interested in careers where you don't need to go to college. So they're bringing those types of people in. And it was just funny because I was like, oh crap, I had hopefully they don't know my GPA,
Right.
But I was telling them, I was like, look, if you guys, I really believe that in general, like going to college, the 3 months after you graduate high school is kind of crazy. Like, because again, most of those kids don't know what they want to do. Like, they just don't know who they are yet. Maybe they really think they want to, be a nurse or whatever, but like
Marine
they
biologist.
don't really know. It's like you've only hung out with these few people from elementary school and all that, your whole life. And then you're going to graduate and your world's going to open up a good bit. You're going to meet new people. And then those people will influence your life, so from the outside, they'll mold you a little bit differently. And then maybe you'll get a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever, and they're going to mold you. And so you're going to change a bit in those first like 2 or 3 years after high school. And so it's like, to me, it almost makes more sense to graduate high school, go work different jobs. Like if you really wanted to be strategic about it, like write down a list of things that you're interested in. I'm interested in building homes. I'm interested in, running a restaurant. I'm interested in being a dentist or whatever. And then like go work at the front desk of a dentist's office, and then go work doing something for the construction company. And like, I guarantee you one of those you're going to absolutely hate.
Reality is not what you thought it was.
And then you've eliminated those. And or maybe you work at the dental office and you're like, I absolutely love this. Go to school for dentistry. But it's like a lot of kids just are in high school, they don't do anything, and then they're like, I want to be a dentist, and then
see it on TV or something.
Yeah, and it's fine. Maybe some of them love it, maybe some of them don't. Like, but if you don't experiment and figure out what you like or don't like, you are completely taking a flyer on something.
Yeah, waste a lot of time heading in a direction that you realize you don't want to go 3 or 4 years later, or 10, 15 years later.
Yeah. Or like you've committed to it. Like, for example, my wife is the opposite of me. Like, she is the person that I'm kind of talking about. Like, she graduated high school and went to pharmacy school, like undergrad. She was like pre-pharm or whatever they would call it. And then she went to pharmacy school, and it's all she knew. Now, she worked a couple of jobs, like in high school, like jobs like what we were talking about, like at a little restaurant, like as a server or whatever. But like throughout college, she didn't work because she's like focusing on that. And then so her only like real job has been pharmacy. Like she graduated, she's a pharmacist, and she's fine. It's like, again, if we were to talk deeply about it, she would be like, well, I don't know if this is like my true love. It's just the thing that I chose. I'm fine with it. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's whatever. But there's this girl that graduated with her who, the day that they graduated, they literally walked across stage. The next day, that girl moved to California and started a bakery. And she literally went all the way through pharmacy school knowing she was never going to do it, but she just did it for her to like make her parents happy.
Right.
And it's just like, holy crap, you just like got in all this debt, like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and now you're going to go start a business in California. Like,
that sounds tough.
Yeah.
Sounds really tough.
Yeah. So, but she probably just figured, who knows at what point, that she figured like pharmacy is just not for me, and just rode out the wave just to do it, to see it through. But yeah.
A lot of people probably do that.
Yeah, a lot do. Definitely.
So what was the turning point for you where you were like, okay, I'm working this regular job, and you saw maybe these new opportunities of being able to buy this house, like getting all this money. You saw your commission check that your realtor made.
Yeah.
Like, what was the turning point when you were like, started to see the vision of actually where you did want to go?
Yeah, it was all of those things accumulating, and then, it just kind of was compounding one thing after another. I at that point, so I was interested in the real estate world. I bought that flip and flipped it. And at that point I was like, all right, I'm pretty sure I want to do real estate. So I went and got a job at a apartment community in like the leasing office because I wanted to learn like the ropes of the leasing world about evictions and whatever, moving people in, all that. So I got a job at Casto Communities, which is like luckily one of like the biggest and best companies in Central Ohio, and worked there. And I was really good at that. I think I was a leasing agent, and a leasing agent is essentially a sales job. Like, people walk in and you talk with them, and you show them the condo. It's literally like being a miniature real estate agent, because they walk in, you meet them, you take down their info, and then you're like, all right, you're interested in this 2-bedroom. We have one coming up in 3 weeks. Let's go tour the model. And then, and then you try to get them to sign the lease essentially. And then you get paid a small commission, but you get paid like $50 on every lease. So I worked that for a few years, and I really liked that. I liked, the people that I worked with and everything. But, and again, that one paid decent, about the same, maybe like 40 grand a year or so. But I was also like, the full intent of that was like my like training for owning rental properties and all that. So like on the side, I was trying to like flip houses and every like that house, that condo that I had sold, then I would like save up a little bit more money and buy another place, and then flip that and then buy another one, and just slowly like that. The first commission, like I said, was like, or the first profit was like 6 grand. The next one might've been like 12 grand. I remember when I started to get to like 20 grand profits, I was like, your boy is cooking now.
Yeah. It's
boy
like,
is cooking.
Nice amount of money in my bank account.
Yeah. Like it was like those times when you're like at parties and like, you're just like, they don't even know who's standing over here. Money bags type of stuff. And so, but the problem with flipping is that you could flip a house, and it's not like deals are everywhere. You know what I mean? Like it takes time to find a deal. So I would like flip a house, make 20 grand, and then there'd be 2 months of like looking for deals when they don't come across. Like you can't just like eagerly jump on something hoping that it'll make money. Like you have to be careful. So it takes time. So there would be a lot of downtime, and then it got a little, I don't want to say it got tiring, but it was just, I don't know if I wanted to live that life forever of like talk about, not knowing where your next paycheck's going to come from, like compared to the stable life of a normal job. Like this is like, you could literally go 3 or 4 months and like nothing, and it takes a lot of effort. Yeah. To like there was times when I would find a house that was all beat up, and like I would look the person up on the auditor site and then look up all the names of their families on all the social media outlets and like all these things, and dig like a crazy private investigator to like try to get a hold of somebody, and then you get the right number, but then they're not responding to you because they think you're a scammer or whatever. It was like pulling teeth, and then you finally get the deal locked in, and then you have to put in the work to flip the place and all that. Like it was cool, like it was super rewarding, and it was a little bit thrilling, but it was just like am I gonna be doing this when I'm 50?
Right.
Like, and from what I've learned is like, it takes a full-blown operation to be like a real estate investor, like especially on the flipping side. Like if you're going to do it at scale, you really need to have what they would call like acquisitions people. So people who are their entire job is to find deals and lock the deal in, so you would have like a staff of like 3 or 4 acquisitions people who are just cold calling people. And there's ways to like pull lists from online to find out people who might be behind on their taxes or whatever, or a death in the family. So, they've mastered that. So then now they just feed those acquisitions people lists to call. Once you get the list down, then you go analyze the house with your project managers, and then those project managers get everything together, and then they're managing the project, and you have contractors. So it's like you're running a full-blown business. It's not just like a dude like I was,
flipping a house.
And I was like, I don't know if that's, for me,
So you saw that's what that required if you wanted to basically scale in the industry of just buying and flipping real estate.
Exactly. Like flipping for me was like a fun hobby, and it still is. I still do it, but it's like a fun hobby that I would like to do 5 or 6 times a year, but like I don't want to like have a staff to manage, and so that was when I also had gotten to a point where because the whole game still was to own rental property. And so, but like if you buy like if I would have bought that first condo, like thank God I couldn't hold that as a rental, because I would have made like $150 a month, and it would have taken me 5 years to be able to save up for another house.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
it was
like,
actually a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. So like by flipping, I was like, okay, I could flip a handful of houses, but then I would take some of those profits. I would have enough to buy one and then hold it, and then I could still go and buy others, you know? And so then you would kind of compound that way. And so that's what kind of led me down to the like rental path. But even the rental path was tough, because I would, I would buy like the first rental that I bought. I essentially bought it as a flip. Like it needed the amount of work you would put into a flip. I bought it, I flipped it, and I held it. And then I think I was into it like, this was like in the hood, so it wasn't a good area. But I think all in, I was into it like 80 grand or so. But I was making like a couple $100s a month. I rented it for a year, and then a year later, it was worth 180 grand. I was like, I'm just gonna sell this thing. Like I can make like an extra 80 grand or whatever. Like as opposed to keeping this thing for $200 a month. This is stupid, you know?
Right.
And so I just essentially held it for a year and then flipped it, you know? And I actually had 2 duplexes at that time. So I did that with both of them because I was just like, when you're used to $20,000, you know, profits on flips or 30 or whatever, like $200 a month, it's like, holy crap.
Like
what are we doing here?
Trickle.
And like having to manage and worry about what if the basement floods and you know what I mean? And like, so I was just like, this couple $100s a month is tough, you know? And I should have held that place because then literally a year and a half after I sold it, that guy sold it for 360 grand.
Right.
So I was like, should have
in the hood.
Yeah.
Where is this?
Like Kelton.
Okay.
So yeah, like Miller Kelton, kind of over by Children's Hospital area where all of that. It's just those areas are like expanding. So if you could like get ahead of it, which I did, I bought that house for 40 and then renovated it for another 40 or whatever. You know, I knew I was ahead of the curve. I would have never guessed it would have got to 360. I mean, now duplexes down there probably go in the 5s.
The only real estate thing I ever experienced, which I kick myself to this day for not doing, is back in the day, there used to be the Columbus Land Bank, and they had all these properties that were just distressed, and the city was giving out grants in order to restore them. And I could have got a house for $5,000 in Old Town East and a $30,000 grant to restore it with the promise that I would restore it within a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could have done that. And looking back,
talked yourself out of it. Probably.
I was like, oh, this is like,
that's what I was talking about earlier. Where I said, you know, I'm ignorant. I just impulsively jump on it. Like,
which I don't know why I didn't, because I was the kind of person to do that back in the day. And I don't know what scared me out of it, but
I've done that even still, like to myself. Like I'm very good at paying attention to myself. That's another thing I tell people if they want to be successful is like, if you can be as brutally honest with your self-awareness, you're going to be good. I've seen it a lot of times with our own real estate agents or people that I talk to in the real estate world who are like, oh yeah, I'm super social and this, and it's like, no, you're not. Like you wish you were, but you're not, you know? And so if they would be honest with themselves about that, they would be a better agent or whatever. And so I'm always like trying to be as self-aware as possible. And so I would catch myself. It would be a deal like that. And then I'd be like, and I'd talk myself out of it, you know? So I've learned that if I find a deal, like I have to like put pen to paper and lock it in contract, like within 12 hours, because I'll wake up the next day, like, and my emotions will be different and I'll talk myself, or something will happen somewhere else and it'll distract me and I'll forget about that or what. It's very easy to talk yourself out of a big jump like that.
Is there a time where you had a deal that fell through or that you like kind of waited too long and kicked yourself in the
there's been a few. It's not ones that I would say like were super profitable, but there was times when I would like over negotiate, like over like $3,000 on a purchase price of like $180,000. It's like, who gives a shit,
right?
Like, but it was just me like being prideful, and it's just like, and I knew in the moment too. I was like, you're just being stupid. It was almost like, if I'm going to be completely self-aware, it's almost like I was using that as an excuse to like not buy it. I was like, I'm just going to over negotiate it because I'm putting on the facade that I really want it. But if it falls out, then oh well, you know. And so you just learn from those things at the end of the day. And you know, you got to know, like, when you're feeling like you're over negotiating it, just bite the bullet and, you know, give them what they want. It's still a good deal. The numbers still make sense, you know. But yeah, I mean, you're not alone. I'm sure any investor you talk to is like, there's been times where they have not committed to it, you know, committed to a thing or whatever, and it's kind of screwed them. But yeah, there's been a few that. There was one on Sunbury Road over by Hoover Reservoir. I just drove by it the other day, and like the front yard obviously butts up to Hoover or Sunbury Road, and then directly on the other side is the lake. Like, and I mean,
waterfront.
So yeah, it's like your lot isn't waterfront, but like you're looking out your front door at Hoover, and I'm just like, and it's right next to the dam. Like the dam is just, I don't know, a quarter mile south. And I remember that house went on the market for like 170 back in the day, and that was a big buy for me. Like I was used to buying stuff at like 110, 120. So I think that's why I didn't get it. oh man, that thing's probably worth like 600, 700 grand or more now. I'm just like, but it is what it is. Who knows? Maybe I would have bought that and put myself in a huge pickle and ruined the rest of my life. So you just don't know,
Right. Yeah. You can only connect the dots, like looking back at it. You can never see it in the future and be like, okay, this is a risk, not like an opportunity.
Yep.
So on a current events note, I know obviously, the past 10 years, real estate has exploded, and a lot of people are saying that we're kind of in a bubble and it might pop and we might kind of get another 2008 like recession. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. People have been saying that ever since I got into this world in the flipping side of everything, like, 2014, 15, it's almost like seemed like it's became less talked about. When I was into it in 2014, 15, 16, 2008 was so recent that it was very fresh in everyone's mind, and they were like, oh, this is going to happen again. This is going to happen again. Everyone says that. It seems like every year. And like COVID, I was like, oh, just the economy in general might tank. Like, we might be in some trouble here, not just like the housing industry, but
just in general.
And that didn't do it. And then again, I kind of paid attention to it, and I was like, look, the 2008 thing, like, unless you like were really deep into the mortgage industry and kind of paid attention to it, like nobody really saw that coming except for like the 6 months leading up to it. Like it was like a storm brewing behind closed doors that then popped. And from the little bit that I've done research on it, it's like a lot of these situations where the housing market crashes, like it is, no one sees it coming, Right. And at the end of the day, also, if you hold your stuff long enough, like it will rebound anyways, generally. So, but I don't think we're in much of a now. It's very city by city too. Like right now, like Los Angeles, Nashville, Tennessee, Austin, Texas, Miami, they're in a downturn because they spiked so much during COVID. Like everyone left the Democratic cities essentially and went to the red states because of the freedom. So like housing prices skyrocketed. Like a $600,000 house in Austin, Texas was a $1.2 million house like a year later. Like really boomed. It was crazy. And so, but anytime anything goes up that much, it's going to come back down. They're kind of dealing with that leveling off. The good thing about Columbus is like it's pretty insulated and we're growing pretty steadily. So we've just been like steadily increasing over time over the last 10 years. So, who knows? Who knows what's to come, but I don't see any issues really. And again, as long as you hold on to stuff, like if you're flipping, it could be an issue because you're buying it, you're putting money into it over this next 6-8 months, and then you need to sell it. You need to make sure nothing happens in that 6 months. But if you're buying a rental property, you're like, I'm going to have it for 5 years, like you should be fine. Even if you buy it and it crashes right away, like you won't be as positive on the back end, but you'll probably be at least be able to break even.
Right.
So, yeah. But yeah, it's, I always say like, if you ever talk to anybody and they try to tell you that they know, like they're idiots.
They don't know.
Yeah, nobody knows unless you're like, the Fed and like controlling interest rates.
Right.
But beyond that, none of us know. It's just, if you want to invest, just invest, in the real estate world. If you want to buy a house, just buy a house. I see it all the time where too many people will be like, I'm going to wait till something comes out. Like a funny thing as a real estate agent was the 2023-ish, whenever the interest rates started to go up, was everyone had always said for the 7 or 8 or whatever years prior, like, oh, housing market's too competitive. There's too many people. There's too many. I don't want to get in bidding wars. I don't want to get in bidding wars. Okay. So then I'm not going to pay over list, whatever. Cause like you essentially have to pay over list on like anything nice. That's just kind of how it's always been. So then interest rates start to go up. The market flattens out. There's like no competition. We tell people you can get stuff for 20 grand under list, whatever. Well, I'm not going to buy when interest rates are high. Okay, well, it's like interest rates should come down a little bit at some point. Like just buy now. Before you were so worried about the purchase price.
Right.
Purchase prices are down now. You can't have both. You can't have purchase prices down and interest rate.
Do one, refinance later.
So then they didn't buy. And so it's almost just like they just like make an excuse or whatever to, again, like they're making the excuse to not make the commitment.
It's like you making that extra $3,000.
Right.
It's like they're really just scared and they want to like give themselves an escape route to not commit.
100%. Yeah. And so it's just I've seen it with too many people where they will, oh, it's not a good time to buy. A house is listed for 180 grand. I'm going to wait for it to come down. The next year, that same house listed for 200 grand. And the next year, it's listed for 215. And it's just like, you wish your ass would have bought that when it was 185, So it's like, it's better just to buy it, and just ride it out.
So how long have you been doing real estate now?
So, yes. So since a little over, I guess, 10 years, right around 10 years. So, yeah. And then, like I said, got my license and then just kind of slowly transitioned into, when I got licensed, there was zero intent of working with clients. Like I actually did not want to work with clients. I was just like, cause I loved the working for myself. Like if I have a flip, and I don't want to go work on it today, screw it. I won't work on it. Like I'm a boss, and I knew if I had clients, I have to show houses when they want or do whatever, but then I was posting on social media about my flips because I just thought it was interesting. Oh, I'm tearing a wall down today. Here's a time lapse of me tearing this wall down or before and after or whatever. And I guess I've learned now that I was marketing myself as hey, I'm a real estate guy, especially at that point when you're 24, 25 doing it. Most of your other friends haven't bought houses or whatever. So you're kind of becoming the guy that most of your acquaintances know is oh, he's been doing real estate. So when they're ready to buy, when they're 26, 27, 28, Jordan's been doing this for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. So I was accidentally marketing myself. And then I would have a neighbor who's like, hey, can we, will you list my house for, and then I'll list it. And you list a house, you get paid $12,000. I was like, holy shit. All I had to do was, get the listing, market it. And there was no physical work or no investment. And I made the same amount as I was on these flips. So then I was kind of well, maybe I should do more of these too. Maybe get some of these commissions. So that kind of sent me down then I started, what I would do is go and do, cause I would do door hangers for flips. I had door hangers. I still have them in my old house where that say I'll buy your house for cash. I don't think anyone ever called me for those. But then I was like, well, let me just make these same door hangers, but I'll list your house. So I would go through my neighborhood and do door hangers, and I got a handful of people who actually called me to list their house. And, I got paid, who knows, $7 to $10,000 on each one. I was like, holy crap, screw this
high
flipping
ROI
stuff.
activity.
Yeah. Screw this flipping, I'll just do this, And so that's kind of what sent me down the becoming a realtor and working with clients, rabbit hole. And then eventually, starting my own company. So yeah, it was a bit of a ride.
That 10 years, that sounds like a journey.
Yeah.
So I guess I know a lot of real estate agents, and a lot of them have been in the real estate a long time, but a lot of people don't really see the success that you do. So do you think that would you attribute that success to the or the amount of time that you've been in the game and how early you got into it? Or do you think that there's kind of other things that separate you from anybody else who would want to do this that make you able to kind of be who you are?
Yeah, I mean, I think what helps is being social. So I had a decent network. I've always been good at social media. I will attribute a lot of my success as far as clients go to social media. In high school, I was on social media more than most people. In college, I was I had no shame in DMing girls and stuff, whereas people wouldn't have done that as much back then. Now it's it's the only way girls will communicate with you. You can't talk to a girl in the bar, but back then so I had no problem with networking or even in high school, I would have friends in other high schools and stuff, which seemed a little odd. Most of the people from high school only hung out with our high school. So I was kind of networking, and then the social media world really helped. And so I've just kind of leveraged that to help me get clients and build trust and be relatable with the people. They're oh, I've been paid attention to Jordan for a while. I've known who he is, and he seems to, do a lot of business or whatever. So they'll reach out to me. So the social media world has definitely helped a lot with me. And then also just the hunger. I always tell new real estate agents, our game is purely a hunger. It's a drive game. I always use this analogy of it's like going to the gym. People will get their real estate license, and it's just like getting a gym membership. Just because you got your real estate license, or just because you got your gym membership, doesn't mean you're leaving that day 5 pounds lighter, or a week later you're not well, where's my six pack?
Right.
It's all getting your real estate license allows you to do is put in all the hard work over time to see results a year down the road, And so a lot of them will just kind of, and you don't have a boss, it's just like working out. No one's telling you to go to the gym every day. Even if you have a personal trainer, and you meet them once a week, those other days, what are you doing? It's up to you to be disciplined, and have the drive. And so that's where, from what I've seen, is a lot of agents fall off or are mediocre or whatever, or the ones that are crazy do a ton of business. Like they're the person in the gym that's in the gym 2 times a day and playing basketball in between. You know what I mean? Like they're addicted to it. So it's just, it's just kind of, in my world, it's almost like accidentally leveraging the thing that I've always been decent at, which is just using social media, not necessarily fully like, I don't think of it as like marketing though. It's just like, I just enjoy seeing what other people are posting about, commenting on their stuff, interacting with people, responding to their Instagram stories or whatever.
You're not even marketing, you're just being yourself.
Yeah,
on social media.
100%. And now that I've taken a deeper dive into it after running a brokerage and trying to train agents, it's like that's what people want anyway. It's like you do need to post about, hey, I just closed on this house last week, because you need to let them know that you are an agent. But if that's all I was doing, people will be like, that's cool, but like, you're not really, I don't know anything about you. But when I post about, my dog's playing in the yard, or me and Kelsey going to a festival or whatever, it's, oh, this dude's just like me. Like, that's who you want to hire to help you through a thing, because the home buying process is a process. Like, you're hanging out with people for 30, 45 days. Like, you become like their friend, like, like we've been invited to a handful of my clients' weddings and all kinds of stuff. Like, you literally become their friend, and they're doing the biggest thing in their life. Like, buying a house is a huge thing outside of getting married and having a kid. So
like one of the biggest things you'll ever do.
Yeah. And so, like you said, they're trusting you, and so they want it to be somebody that they can at least relate to, like I just had a client the other day, who called me, and he said had already talked to another agent. This guy's moving in from another state. He talked to another agent who was just like an older lady. And this guy is a single guy in his mid-30s moving here, and he doesn't really know much about the city. He was just like, I just wasn't like, her and I were not on the same wavelength. Like,
right.
He's like, I need a guy like me to kind of point me in a direction. You think kind of similar.
I feel like I can trust.
Yeah, exactly. In the same with, I'm sure if there was an older couple, they're not going to want to hire necessarily a 22-year-old to help them sell a house,
Right.
So it's, being relatable is one of the biggest things in the marketing world, in the content world, and all of it. People relate to people.
100%. Yeah. I love how you have that insight, and not being in marketing or anything like that. Like, just knowing that, like, I've kind of been trying to break it down, what makes people buy off social media. And that's like what I wrote down is, so you want to inspire people, you want to invoke admiration and relatability. So
100%. It's
talk about
it's the story. So many of the YouTubers that I'll follow, like, they're relatable. Like, there's this one guy, his name's Max Tuning. When Kelsey and I got our golden doodle in 2020, a guy that this is a good example of my weird social media network. This random dude who also did real estate investing in Florida. Never met this guy in my life. We talked all the time. We just respond to each other's stuff. He saw that we got this dog, and he DM'd me. He's like, you should follow this guy. His name's Max Tuning. He's like a fitness influencer, but he has the same dog. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So this Max Tuning had literally just bought his dog and was like in his vlogs like a month before we did. So it was kind of like the same. We were relatable. Like, his golden doodle was literally like peeing on the floor, and so was ours. And
right.
so then you follow this guy, and then he just vlogs, he posts once a week. And like, at the time he went and bought a house, and he was like fixing the house up. And so he was telling that story, and he owned like a clothing company, like, a lot of YouTubers do. Then eventually he started a candy company. And so it's like, he's just telling these stories of like the struggles and the pros and the cons of all these things. And so it's like, you really fall in love with the story. He started this candy company. Like, I'm not even a big candy guy, but he started it. Like, Kelsey and I ordered his candy. We're like, yeah, let's get that candy at our house, And so I've kind of come to learn, especially on like the big scale content creator stuff. Like, if you can make people feel like they know you and they like your story, they will buy anything from you. Mm-hmm. You could sell shoelaces and they'll buy them,
this guy's my friend. I like this guy.
Yeah. Just to support. It's just to show support, and so that's like, that applies more towards like the merch world and whatever, but it's the point is they fall in love with the story more. Like, they want to know who you are. And that's why good content creators, from what I can tell, because all I watch is YouTube. It's like really they're just the best at like telling a story and and making their life a story. Like Casey Neistat, who, we all know, I mean, the king of doing nothing in a day and making it the most freaking interesting thing of all time.
Right.
You're just like waiting the next day. When is this next vlog coming out? I want to watch him literally wake up in the morning, eat cereal, ride his skateboard to work, talk about something in his office, open mail in his office, and then go home. It's like, but he made it super intriguing. I was just on a little Casey Neistat bender a few months ago because it's like still interesting to watch now.
Right. Does he still make videos?
Very rarely, but it's fun to like go back and watch his ones from like 2015, 2016.
Right. Do you have a YouTube channel?
No. Okay. No. Actually, I think I do because like in 2020 I was like posting shorts for a little bit. But yeah, my stuff is mostly Instagram and TikTok, just promoting my real estate stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I haven't really, because to me, like the YouTube world's more long form. Like,
what, for sure.
You know, yeah, my 1 minute edits are about as long as it's gonna get for me.
Right.
But
well, I was always kind of thinking the same thing. I'm more of like a long form or short form person, like make reels. But what I've guess like getting like diving deeper into the social media space, I'm realizing that like your YouTube's like your deep dive, and it's like you're not going to get as many views, you're not going to get as many people watching your full video. Obviously, there's not going to be nearly as many people who care about like your hour-long content of you talking about whatever, but the people that do care enough to actually watch that is that creating that long form content actually gives them enough time to spend like an hour or multiple hours with you. And like on average, like it takes like 7 touch points to kind of get someone to remember you. But if you're able to kind of spend a lot more time with someone on one touch point, and like it'll cut that in half or cut that in a quarter. And so what I decided this year is I'm going to go all in on YouTube, because I see all these YouTube people where it's like, yeah, YouTube is a grind. YouTube is like, you have to put so much effort into it. But I feel like in the long term, if you're really wanting to grow a personal brand, you're really wanting to like build a following of people who actually care about what you're doing, that if you can get people on YouTube, they're going to be with you forever.
Yeah, it almost seems to me, we just talked about this a couple of days ago in the office on the social media space. Like it seems like TikTok is more like a vehicle to build a following quickly, but you're not necessarily building as much of like a community on TikTok, I feel like. And I'm not on TikTok as much, so I might be a little bit more ignorant to it, but TikTok is like high numbers, almost like more volatile. And then Instagram is slightly less numbers, but you're a little bit more community. And then YouTube is like, you've hammered home, those subscribers are like your people.
Exactly.
That's your real deep community.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like you said, that's where you've got them for the long haul.
Like you said, like you're like, even now, like your other week, you're watching Casey Neistat videos from 2015. Yeah.
If he started vlogging again, I'd be the most hyped.
Exactly. You know? Because like, and it's because you've spent all that time with him and you're like, I know I love this guy.
Yeah.
Where shorts are also just like, they're fleeting.
Yeah. 100%. Like, yeah.
You like, even if somebody was posting your favorite shorts for a whole year, like you wouldn't even spend enough time with him watching his shorts to think about him 10 years from now, most likely.
Well, and a thing I've paid attention to myself, this goes back to my like annoying amount of self-awareness, is there was a time, and this is before a lot of this algorithm stuff changed, where your timeline was mostly like what the people that you followed.
Right.
There was a time when I noticed that I would have this like 2-year attention span for a creator or whatever, for a person on Instagram. After 2 years, I just kind of got bored of them and I would unfollow them.
Right.
Like no matter what they would do, their content would still stay the same. But for me, I just kind of got tired of them. And I think it's because on like social media, you have, you can't be as creative in a 1 or 2 minute or 30-second clip. But when you have a 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute clip or whatever, like you can be each thing is different. Like each video is different. Whereas like on Instagram and TikTok, like you kind of have to do the same thing in different forms. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if it's talking head videos, it's talking head videos. That's just what it is. Like if it's comedians, it's like doing crowd work or a podcast, you know, but then a comedian can go into a vlog and like show their whole vlog of that weekend's tour and like them getting off the bus, getting set up before the show, after the show. You know what I mean?
It lets you put more real life into it. I feel like where it's like the short form, it's like Instagram. It's like, we only show the very best of what we want people to see. In the long form, you can kind of get rid of that. And I feel like it kind of lets your barrier down a little bit and lets people connect with you where you are a little bit more.
Yeah.
And like actually get insights into who you are, not just who you like think you are.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I'm super excited and just to kind of hop headfirst into YouTube and see where it goes.
The thing for you is it'll be good because, you know, especially when you did your 100 posts in 100 days, your 100 videos in 100 days, that was really awesome to watch. And you got a taste of like the boom from that. Like you got a good following, and so it's, I don't want to say you like 100% figured it out, because no one's 100% figured it out, but like you kind of figured that out. This is going to be like completely, I don't want to say completely new learning for you, but like you're learning it's similar. It's a parallel world, but it's a different world, but again, like you're getting a higher reward because we know that those are deeper followers in the YouTube world.
Exactly. And it's like, it might be way harder to build that. Like I don't have any expectation of getting nearly the kind of viral success that I had on Instagram for posting YouTube videos, but viral success like is not what I'm after. Yep. Like what I'm after is like a really fulfilling life of me being exactly who I want to be. And what I'm realizing with the YouTube is it forces me to do exactly that. Is if I'm forcing myself to show up every single week and create a video documenting the story of like my goal and like how I'm getting there, that holds myself to like this really high level of like, okay, like you've got to like show up for these people, even if it's like I don't even know any of them. It's like you got to show up for these people, and you got to make sure you're not looking like a dumbass, and you got to like make progress. Right. So like every week it's like, okay, now it's like, all right, for the next YouTube video, like this week I need to create paid ads and I need to launch my affiliate marketing system because I told people on YouTube last week that that's what I'm doing this week, and I need to come up this Friday with another video that's kind of told them the progress of where that's at.
Yeah. It pushes you. Yeah. It makes you do things that, like we talked about earlier, where you would like have this idea, oh, I'm going to do that next week. And then you just like, don't do it. It's like, I'm having to stick to my guns.
Exactly.
And that's where you grow, is when you're in those uncomfortable positions, like just uncomfortable enough to where you're growing, but not uncomfortable enough to where you're going to like make some huge mistake that's going to ruin your life. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the YouTube thing grow and you feel it out. And the other good thing about YouTube is it's not as volatile with the algorithm as the other ones are. It's like, it's literally like every 3 months you'll see
more
some
so you get in what you put, or you get out what you put in.
Yeah. It's like the I don't want to say the system is in place or whatever, but like you kind of know what you have to do on YouTube to like build a little bit of a following. Like the blueprint is there to a degree. You just have to get good at it and figure out how you apply your world to that storytelling,
Exactly.
And so, whereas again, it's like you can get really good at like in our world, like I'm into cars, and like, so there'll be car photographers who were like crushing it years ago, because like they would post really high quality pictures of cool cars and cool situations. And then 2020 happened and the video boom happened, and they're just like, I thought this whole app was for pictures,
right?
And they're like left holding the bag, so, and that just kind of shut them down. Now, luckily, photos have came back over the last couple of years, but like I would imagine if I was strictly a photographer, I'd be like, well, this sucks, right? Like 100%. My whole industry was popping a couple years ago, and just the flip of a switch, they have control over everything. Whereas like you don't deal with that on YouTube; it's generally the same.
Yeah, Instagram's like changing every couple months, where it's like YouTube. And I feel like everyone's always like, or at least I've always been like, man, I wish I started YouTube in 2016.
Yeah.
And I told myself that for years and years and years. I'm like, man, like, oh, I just wish I would have started back in the golden ages of YouTube, all these creators. But like 2024, 2025, who's to say 2025 is not the golden age of 2020 or 2030, when people like looking back, we're like, man, you had it so good. If I would have just got started on my social media back when it was easy, before there were 10 times as many creators on these platforms and all of this stuff was like way more like harder to get into, which is exactly how I think about it now. It's like, okay, I'm in the golden age of the internet.
Yeah. Like
we're at the very beginning.
I remember there was a Casey Neistat video, and he was talking about this guy that was like, maybe he was relating himself to this guy. And he was like the OG of like television, of like video work, like not even television. Like, I don't even think it was out. It was like back when video cameras first came out, like where they were like the huge, and this guy was making these crazy videos, and he was showing this, it's like black and white videos. And like, he was like, man, this guy was, the OG of it or whatever. And then like, but his videos were like not good. It was just like, he was just crazy and he was the first one in front of the camera. But then, over time, and I forget how it all got to this point, but I remember him kind of painting the picture in my mind to being like, that would be like somebody in, 1980 being like, man, like I'm too late to the television game, like I missed out. TVs got invented in the 60s. Oh well, I'll never be able to be successful on television.
Right.
It's like, no, you're still kind of early.
Like, that's such a good comparison, because that really puts it into perspective, like how like this technology was at the very beginning of what it can be.
Yeah, it's like you're still, I mean, like especially with the social media world, like it's probably going to be around for like until like 80. So it's like,
until the world gets destroyed,
until something crazy happens. Yeah, but it's like it'll be around for a while. So it's like, like you said, you're still in the beginning. Like you said, I remember in 2016, that was when I was watching the Casey Neistat stuff, and I remember watching Casey Neistat, and you're definitely gonna know like Peter McKinnon and all them, like, and everybody was like, that was when drones first started, and we're all like, there's kind of like this little like YouTuber vlogger boom, for at least in my world. I think I was early at it though, but and it's like at that point I was like, definitely way too late. Like,
exactly,
I've completely missed the ball. And it's like, yeah, like you said, if you would have just started then, like, you'd definitely be ahead of the people now. And there's somebody there's like definitely right now a kid in high school or in middle school right now who will be mega famous
100%
in 10 or 15 years. So it's like, why are they not too late? So it's never too late.
And again, I think it just goes back to that thing. It's just another thing you tell yourself to make it easier to not hold yourself to what you know you want to do.
Yep. And it's the same with, and again, to tie it back to real estate, it's the same with real estate. So like whenever I first got into it and I was flipping houses and this, that, people would tell me like, I would never buy houses right now. You could have bought them for X amount back in 2009 when the crash happened or whatever. And one thing I've learned is through myself and working with other investors is wherever you get in, let's say houses in your market are on average 100 grand. That's when you start. That's like the low point for you as far as pricing goes. And then, when houses are 180 grand a handful of years later and some new kid comes in and he asked me, would you buy this? No, dude, I would have bought that for 100 grand.
Right.
X amount of years ago.
4 years ago.
But that kid only knows 100 grand or 180, so then him 5 years later, whatever, it's all just about where you start. Cause that's where your perspective starts. And I've used that to kind of prevent myself from being the crabby old man. It's like, you can't make money in this industry. It's like, just because I remember what it was like there's a kid in high school somewhere in the U.S. that's going to graduate in a couple years, go on a similar path to me, but flip way more houses. And so that he'll be able to find profit in deals, it's like, so yeah, it's never too late to do anything. It's just, you got to get out of your own head about it sometimes.
I think that's the biggest thing, but
yeah.
As far as so that's probably the biggest thing is just most people just get stuck in their own heads. But if you were to give like 3 tips to somebody who is your 21-year-old version of yourself, but already knows they want to go into real estate and like their idea is to become the next version of someone successful like you, what would be like the 3 tips that you would give those people? Like above all else, like do these 3 things and you can make it.
So I'll give like a half one. This is like, just get your real estate license because it's relatively easy. And that's obvious, so I won't count that as a full tip. It's to get your real estate license. It's like a 3-week class. It's like $1,500. I always say, for that to be the criteria to be able to make like doctor money. I mean, we have agents at my brokerage that make like $1 million a year. I mean, that's a lot easier than going to med school.
Right.
So do that. Worst case scenario, you never close a deal. You're out $1,500 and you kind of got educated on something, so
I know a little bit more about real estate.
Exactly. So, do that. Then, then find somebody to kind of look up to, like what I would call a North Star. Like I've, for most of my career, had somebody usually on social media that I would try to emulate to a degree, whether it's an investor out in Arizona or whatever, but I'll kind of like try to copy their thing, and make my own version of that. So if it's real estate and it's like you're in a certain city, I would say, find somebody in your city. Maybe if you can get them to directly mentor you, like that would be ideal. But even if it's just you have to watch them from a distance and copy what they do on social media, or if you pay attention enough to them and you see how many open houses they're doing, like kind of do what they're doing, follow the way that however they market themselves, do those same things. So find somebody to as your North Star until you're able to like become your own thing. Cause in the beginning, like you don't know what you're doing. Again, to use my gym analogy, it's like pick somebody in the gym that kind of seems relatable to you and just like follow their workout, like stand next to them and just kind of awkwardly do what they're doing. And then eventually you'll know how to work out and then you'll be able to do your own stuff.
You'll see other people doing it stuff too. You'll be like, okay, this sucks. I like what they're doing.
Exactly.
I don't like what they're doing.
Yeah. Because like if you're just looking at 45 people in the gym and you're like not going to know what to start, like what to pick up or what to do. So it's like, if you can just pick a person and follow them around, if you do that for 2 weeks in a row, like you've essentially like figured out a workout plan. Same with like almost any business, like, so doing that in real estate would be a big thing. And then the other thing, and it's kind of hard and it's it's very broad. Is like just do stuff. In the real estate world, it's almost the epitome of what we've talked about, where you get out of it what you put into it as far as like effort wise, but it's not that much skill. It's just doing things like going to a networking event. You don't have to be like the best talker or whatever, but just go to them. If you go to them, you're going to hear things. You're just naturally going to meet people. Even if you're not trying to talk, people will come over to you and talk.
Put yourself in the rooms.
So it's like, go to networking events, go to various things, go to realtor meetups, join realtor pages online, and just involve yourself in the thing. And then like the more like open houses that you work, that's a way that will generate businesses, working open houses. The more of those you can do, the faster you're going to get clients. The more you can post on social media, the faster you're going to see clients. But it's just what they do is like they don't do it. Like it's pretty crazy, but they just don't put in the effort. It's purely an effort game. So just like, get your real estate license, hit the ground running, like a maniac.
Doing stuff.
Yeah, just do. Like, don't think, just do. You'll be able to hone in on it later. You'll be able to dial it in. But it's almost similar to what I said with the jobs when I was in high school. It's like, try different things. Like when we train new agents, we give them because real estate's been around forever, right? The things that work outside of like the social media world, which is somewhat newer in that marketing side, like they work. Like postcards that everyone gets in the mail and they're annoying, like they work, cold calling people, it works, and so there's all these like different methods that you can train people to do that work. You just have to do them. Like the blueprint's there. Right. And then you'll realize like, I hate doing postcards. Like they're a waste of money, or I really enjoy holding open houses or whatever, but until you try them, you don't know. So try. Like that's how we train people. We train our agents like one-on-one, like I'll mentor them and essentially. So we go through a couple of days of training. I give them all these examples and I say, all right, now go try some of these things because you don't know what you don't know, like if I was like, hey, figure out how you want to get downtown, whether it's a skateboard, a scooter, a bike, you're going to come back and be like, I like the scooter the most, all right, then how do we make you faster on the scooter? So you just try the things. You're going to hate some, you're going to love some. And then we just double down on the ones that you love, but so it's just just dabble. And then, and then it only takes like one thing for you to like, and be good at, and then you can make some money. And then just, being social too, which I guess applies to what I was just saying.
I feel like the third one could just be double down on what's working.
Yeah.
So find a mentor that's already kind of emulating what you want to do and use them as a role model. Number 2 is just start creating stuff. So put out stuff that you feel like you're the person who is doing it the best would be doing.
Trying different things, yeah.
And you're going to hate some of it, you're going to love some of it, and double down on the stuff that you love and that is successful.
Yep. And just understand the other thing too is while doing all of that, you have to understand it's a long game. The biggest reason the agents don't pan out is because they want immediate success. Again, just like the gym, people will get their gym membership, go a month, and be like, I'm done with this. This is stupid. I lost 2 pounds and I gained 3 pounds.
It's so hard too.
Yeah, and so they're done with it. They don't see that like it's just the consistency over time,
and it gets easier, and you get better.
And like that's why it's dorky and cliche to say it, but it's like you kind of have to fall in love with the process. Like you can't, in our world, you can't fall in love with like the results. You have to just be happy that, like for me, it's like that I created a video and I posted it that day, or I went to the networking event. Like I'm just happy I did the thing. I'm not really that concerned about the results.
100%.
Same again with the gym or whatever. It's like if you're just in there every day just freaking out about if your arms are getting bigger, like you're kind of screwed, like it's better with like being happy that you did the workout that you plan on doing or whatever. So it's like you have to fall in love with the work and then the results will come. I've seen it with agents where the ones who care the most about the pay or whatever usually don't pan out as much. The ones that do the best, like they care the most about the client. They are just like super competitive. Like no matter what, they just need more and more and more. Like they're like addicted to progress, which kind of pushes them through down that route we were just talking about, like doubling down. Like they quadruple down, like as many times as they can. They're just like more and more and more and more and more, to an infinite degree. Those are the ones who do the most. But yeah, unfortunately, most people think it's easy because they see the stuff on TV, which is like that is the easy part. When you get the client is the easy part to a degree. All of the work comes ahead of that, like the letting people know that you're an agent, putting yourself out there. What do I do? How do I let people know? You know what I mean? And so they realize there's all that front end work, and they don't get paid until they get the commission. So they're like, yeah, this isn't for me.
So who was your North Star, like kind of growing into this industry, and like what are some of the things that they did that you saw them do that you were like, I'm going to do that, and they worked for you?
So mine, like I said, were almost all social media based. So when I first started flipping, one of the big ones for me was this guy. His name was Cody Sperber. He was like the clever investor. He's not really on social media he's not as active anymore, but he was what we call like a wholesaler. So a wholesaler essentially finds really good real estate deals. Like they'll find a house that's, worth $100,000. They'll find it like off the market. Like they'll somehow know that these people are way behind on their taxes and they're probably going to have to sell. So they'll get a hold of these people and say, hey, blah, 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 this is the clever investor. That was his company name. We'll buy your house for $50,000 cash and we can close in a week. And like these people are in a pickle. So they need to buy, or they need to sell. So then they'll agree, and then they'll go and find another person, an investor, and then they'll say, hey, I got this house over here. It's worth 100 right now. When you flip it or when you renovate it, it'll be worth, 175. I'll sell it to you for 90. And so then, and they don't even like buy it. They assign it.
They just sell the
contract. So then they make $40,000 just off the paperwork. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so what I did with him is I just essentially took his methods of finding the deals. Like I used him for inspiration, like finding the deal. I remember thinking like, what an idiot. If he knows that he's buying it for 50 and it's worth 175, I was like, just do the whole thing. I didn't understand that like it's much, you can do like 25 of these in one day. Like the whole,
because it's just a signing on the paper.
Yeah, whereas like the whole other thing takes a lot more effort, and they still keep certain ones that are the more profitable ones, but I was like, well, I'm just going to keep that. I'm just going to use that method to find deals. But then that also showed me what I talked about earlier, where it's like this dude had like a whole freaking business. He had like hundreds of employees to do this. And so I was like, man, that's not the route for me. But he was kind of like through the investing side. And then there was another guy who's still actually pretty popular now. His name's like Ryan Pineda, out in Las Vegas. He was doing the wholesaling stuff. And the reason that I liked him was I started following him when he was just like me. Like he had 3,000 followers, 2,000 followers, and we just kind of connected because we were on the same level. It was just like a guy out in Las Vegas doing the same thing as me, and then he blew up, like got super. But he said like in 2019, like I'm tripling down on my content. Like he like almost was like, now I'm now a content creator, and I'm like a flipper on the side, and spent a ton of money on building a studio and took it very seriously. And he really did blow his page up. He has like 500,000 followers or whatever now. But he was he went from the flipping, and then he started a real estate brokerage, which is probably part of the reason why I started my brokerage, and all that. And then he actually ended up closing his brokerage down after I started mine. But he was kind of my North Star for like the realtor side.
Okay.
And then now I'm without a North Star. So
you're the star that's shining in the sky now.
But those two were definitely, amongst others, but those two were definitely ones where I like definitely emulated their path. They were like 2 steps in front of me. So that's why I say, like, if you can find somebody, you don't want to find somebody who's like if you're a content creator, you don't want to like necessarily follow Casey Neistat. He's like level 1,000. You know, you need to follow somebody who's local to you, who's like just a couple steps above, because it's much more attainable to get to that level.
And relatable and like direct. It's like, okay, they're doing this at this level. I can do this at this level and achieve the same results.
Yeah, exactly. So those were my 2 that kind of got me to where I am now. And then just kind of carving my own path at this point.
So now that you're North Starless, what's next from here for you?
Just growing the brokerage. So like I said earlier, our brokerage we got 50 agents so far. And so we're kind of in a rock and a hard place deciding where we want to go. Obviously we want to continue to grow our brokerage and get more agents. But really, to scale it up big, we're going to probably want to franchise. So maybe, start I think what we've discussed is potentially getting an office in Cincinnati, because it's same state, different cities, same state. So like all licensing, and we understand the laws. And then Cincinnati is right next to, Kentucky. Half the agents down there are already licensed in Kentucky. So if we can get agents that are licensed in both, it's like a pretty obvious
double dip a little bit.
Yeah, transition right into Kentucky, open an office in Kentucky, and then just kind of go from there, and then open offices, because if I have 10 brokers that work for me that are all building their own team at the same time. It's kind of scaling up at a much faster rate. So that's kind of the long-term vision, but I don't want to do it too fast in our world. Like if you try to scale up too fast and bring in too many agents, like you're just giving the agents less attention than they need, and then they're more likely to fail, and you're just kind of like burning rubber, know? And so you want to still be able to, like, whether it's bringing on agents, you want to be able to train them properly. If I'm bringing on a new broker in another city, like I want to spend full attention with them, making sure that they're doing it right. And then it's slowly, grow from there.
Build it right.
Yeah.
Scale too quickly and fall apart.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, breaking into other states, that's the next big hurdle. And just like for you with YouTube, that's like for me, like I've figured out the recruiting, training agents, making them successful. I've figured that out to a degree. Every agent is different, but like it's not that new to me. Opening a brokerage in a whole new city, parallel universe, eye-opening though, a lot to learn, and so it's like my version of your YouTube channel.
So kind of taking what you've already done and then expanding it into a different area and doing it again, but bigger. And
it's just funny because anytime I've done any of these things, house flipping or another big thing we haven't really talked too much about is like my rentals. Now I have a whole bunch of Airbnbs. So like that was like, I'm still in the real estate world. I've owned a rental property, but now I have Airbnbs. So it's just like, it's these steps that we do. It's just like, all right, we're just going to go slightly outside of our comfort zone. Oh, let's go 2 steps to the right. I'm not too far away. I still kind of know, but so that's like kind of what we're both doing. It's like, let's just kind of step out enough to where we're learning, but because I get a little bit of cabin fever, I've learned about myself. If I don't, like over the last year, the brokerage is kind of well oiled. Like we've got a smooth system for recruiting and training and this and that. And so I started to get a little antsy because I'm like, I need to be learned. I need to be
challenged.
Yes, 100%. And so
I feel that.
And so I was getting a little whatever. I was telling my assistant and now our office manager, I was like, he was probably having to keep me on the rails because I was probably coming up with some crazy ideas of
let's do this.
Yeah, so
something to shake.
Exactly. So that's my way to challenge myself at some point here soon.
So what percentage of your portfolio is like rentals these days, or I guess like of your yearly income? How much is that coming from like rental portfolio, and how much of that's coming from your brokerage?
So I ironically just like thought about this the other day because I think when I had to talk to Olentangy schools, they like kind of wanted me to just be blunt about my income. So I have 10 Airbnbs around Central Ohio, like kind of in the suburbs, just houses. So that's about 30%, I would say. Like those make gross or whatever. They'll make about $400,000 a year. So those will make $400,000 a year. The reason that those are great is because I had a majority of those before I started the brokerage, but that income allowed me to like take somewhat of a risk on starting the brokerage because it's like that's like my chilling, like that money pays my bills and whatever, and then
like fail drastically and you'd be all right.
Yeah, I get in my car and all that, and like
so you did that before you started the brokerage. You got all your real estate, basically like rental portfolio.
As my like up. That like my house flipping turned into like buying the Airbnbs, and like so I'd buy like 2 Airbnbs a year or so, and so that kind of built into that while I had my real estate license as just a realtor, and then as that income started coming in, I was like, and also like at that point, my wife is a pharmacist too. So like we can't discount she has decent income as well. So then we were kind of chilling. And so then I was like, all right, let's just go out on a limb here and start a brokerage. And the nice thing about a real estate brokerage is there's no payroll because like agents don't get paid a salary.
It's all just commission only.
Yeah. So it's like, it's just the risk of, it's just the risk of like bringing them in, training them, like buying them business cards. It's like relatively low risk. So then the brokerage started, and like the brokerage obviously like didn't make tons of money in the beginning. It's slowly starting to make money now, but that probably honestly makes the least amount of money. I don't even know. It's so complicated to even know how much that makes. And then, but like my commissions, like last year I sold 12 million in volume. We to make about 3% of whatever. So that was like about 350 grand too. So my real estate commissions and the brokerage and the Airbnbs are about the same. And then I would imagine the brokerage is probably somewhere in like the 150s or something like that. But like all of my brokerage money just like stays in the brokerage. Like every dollar that we get, like I have like, it's kind of becoming a problem. Every dollar we get, it's like, oh, now we have more money to buy this other thing, you know, oh, let's build a studio. Oh, you know, it's just like at the point, it's like, when am I going to start to like keep some of this money? I'm investing a shitload of money and not.
Well, doesn't it all start to kind of amortize over time? Like,
yeah. And that's the goal is like, hopefully if, you know, down the road we get franchises here, there, whatever, then, you know, then it will just like hockey stick and they'll be worth a shitload of money.
Right.
And then whatever it happens at that point. But yeah, as of lately, it's just like, I'm just like funneling money into it. It's just cause I like to build it. You know, I like the build. It's not about making money to me. It's like, this is my like long-term, my 40-year project of like, what can this thing be one day, you know?